All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, here we are again. It is, I call it the best day of the week, Wednesday, hump day, baby. And we get to connect. I know I've been absent, right? AWOL for the last few weeks, but the airports are open again, man. So I get to travel. And so unfortunately, or depends on, I guess it depends on how you look at it, I was away. Um, but missed you guys, and I'm just excited to be able to reconnect this week. So yeah, I'm always excited to be able to do that. Spend some time with you, sharing some ideas. Feel free to join in. Feel free to comment. I always love when you guys comment and join in the conversation. And of course, next week when we reconnect, don't forget to bring a friend, baby. All right, cool. So this week I want to talk about success and measuring success, because let's face it, we are all in pursuit of this thing called success, aren't we? Right? We want to have it, we want to experience it, we want to become it. I guess the question though is, in pursuit of this thing called success, how do we know that we have achieved it? How do we know that we have arrived? How do you measure success? So I want to talk about that this morning. But before we talk about measuring success, let's define success. What is success? According to the dictionary, success is that favorable or prosperous termination of attempts or endeavors, right? The accomplishment of one's goals, the attainment of wealth or position or honor or the like, which in my mind aligns with what I think most people think about success, right? Mentally great. It's great to see you, bro. It has been a while. Yeah, most people think of success in terms of the money and the position, right? So that's a question. Are you successful, right? Does the extent to which you are successful, the magnitude of your success, does it depend on how much money is in your bank account, or does it depend on the fancy house you live in, the luxurious house you're living, or the luxury car that you drive? Is that what it depends on? It's the 21st century is the age of internet and social media. So some people may define success by how many friends, how many following they have, followers they have in social media, right? Or perhaps it's the number of times you have walked down the street and somebody recognized you, or how many times you've been recognized for work that you have done, something that you have accomplished, right? Or I don't know which university you were accepted in or attended. I always tend to get calls at this time of day. But then there are others who would define success by how many lives they have changed, how many people they have been able to impact in the work that they are doing, right? So in a way, the answer in terms of how we define success depends on you. I always say that success is a very personal thing, right? We all get to define success for ourselves. So let's talk then about how you measure this, right? And the number one way, the first idea I want to share with you, I have 5 of them. So let me, for my friends here over on YouTube and LinkedIn and so on. So the first way I would suggest that you define success is by figuring out, what you value, to go back again to our personal relationship to success, the fact that we should define success for ourselves. So one, you have to discover your values, figure out what you value. Because what I know is that highly motivated people, they go after it, man, and they're really focused on the execution, what they need to do in order to achieve this thing called success, become this thing called success. And unfortunately, they don't spend enough time thinking about what they need to execute in the first place, right? So being able to achieve, a success metric, being able to figure out how you measure successes can be a difficult thing, but knowing what to measure, I would argue, is even more important. Peter Drucker, famous management guru, he says that there's nothing quite so useless as doing with great efficiency something that should not have been done at all, right? Imagine that. You were brilliant at accomplishing this one thing or this particular thing that, quite frankly, shouldn't have even been doing. So it's really important to figure out what you value, figure out what is important to you. And then once you've done that, you can figure out how you're going to measure it, right? You're going to choose your own metrics, right? Because if you don't choose for yourself, you'll end up going along with the crowd, flowing with the current, just doing what everybody else is doing. And that may not necessarily be fulfilling to you. But once you have decided, man, hey, these are the things that's important to me, you can then start working towards putting your energy towards that goal, right? Because it's aligned with your values. So let's not get caught up in the fear that we might be missing out on something by doing what everybody else does. Figure out, again, what's important to you. Discover your values. So that's number one. Number two is figuring out or understanding how well you have adapted to challenges. I think that's, in my mind, one of the ways in which you can absolutely measure your success, right? How well you have adapted to challenges. Booker T. Washington, the great Booker T. Washington, says success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has overcome, right? Success is to be measured not so much by your position, not so much by where you have reached, not so much by what you have accomplished, but by the challenges, the obstacles, the setbacks that you have overcome. And we have gone through an amazing year and a half, haven't we? This thing called COVID, right? This pandemic that has, it has thrown us off course. Let's face it, right? Collectively, we have had to deal with that. And right now, you may not necessarily be doing what you thought you would have been doing this year. But what I know is that each obstacle we face and deal with and overcome in our lives, whether it's COVID-19 or some other obstacles, because that's welcome to life. It's filled with them. And you can't get through life without having to deal with obstacles. But what I know is that once you have overcome them, man, once you have overcome one, what it does is that it builds one of our greatest strengths, our ability to adapt. It builds our ability to persist. It builds our ability to be resilient. And when we develop that ability to adapt, to be resilient, to persist, what we're doing is that we're taking control of our lives, because we absolutely have no control over the things that happen, right? Like none of us had any control over the fact that COVID-19 was going to hit us. But when you figure a way to navigate the sea of uncertainty that these unforeseen circumstances throw at us, then you become adaptable, you become more resilient, become mentally tougher. You learn how to grow in the face of adversity. And that in itself is success. As long as you're in the game, I contend, as long as you're in the game, you have an opportunity to get what you want. You have an opportunity to become what you want, right? To get to where you want to go to. So yes, you may not be where you want to be right now, but I would argue that, being able to adapt to the challenges that life throws at you is a great way to measure your success. Number three, my friends, is that, you have to think about how much you have grown, how much skills and knowledge, how much your skills and your knowledge has improved, right? I think it was Jim Rohn, and I'm paraphrasing him here now, says that success is not so much about what you have accomplished. Yeah, that's part of it, of course. But it's not so much about that, but the person you have become in the process. And you know, I speak all the time about the fact that we have this um, deep reservoir of potential, right? Or potential is unlimited. Um, but you have to spend time working and honing and developing those skills, that exploring that full potential, right? An athlete, an Olympic athlete, professional athlete, don't just wake up one day and they are this amazing athlete, right? They had the potential, but they had to spend hours, days, weeks, months, years honing and developing that athletic talent, that potential, right? Going through the crucible, I call it, putting their bodies and their minds under intense pressure in order to become that amazing athlete. So they, even whether or not they'll win the championships, whether or not they'll win the gold medal or the Olympic Games, they can still claim a high degree of success because of the knowledge and the enhancement of their knowledge and their skills over time, right? So let us not waste this deep reservoir that we have, right? Let's not just measure our success because we got a promotion or we started a new project or we closed a big sale. All of that is important, of course. But hey, how much are you growing in the process, man? How better are you? How much more skilled are you as a salesperson, as a teacher, as a student, right? How much better are you? Because the fact is that uh, they say even a blind squirrel can find a nut any day. And so, you know, every now and again, we're going to kind of bump into success, as it were. Things are going to work out for us. But how prepared are us to maintain that level of success? If you're not growing your skills, if you're not acquiring new knowledge, then it's not going to happen. One of the things that I know about life too is that uh, it's all interconnected, right? It's not disjointed. And so recognize that if you learn and you grow and you develop in your professional life, that spills over into your personal life as well. And it's a great, again, a great measure of success, right? So think about that. Think on that really hard. How much you have grown. Then think about the fact that you should only compare yourself to yourself. Number 4. And I don't know if I can stress this enough, right? You should stop comparing yourself to others, right? We have that tendency. There's something called social comparison bias. Social comparison bias, right? It is defined as having feelings of dislike or and competitiveness with someone that is seen as physically or mentally better than yourself, right? And what we know is that a majority of people in society today, they base their moods and their feelings on how well they are doing compared to other people in their own in their circles, right? It happens every single day. It happens far too often. And so my challenge to you, my encouragement, my exhortation to you is that you should not allow yourself to fall into the trap of comparison. Try to compare yourself only to yourself, right? Try to compare yourself only to yourself. Track your progress. Track the progress that you're making, and resist the urge to keep up with the Joneses, as they would say, right? If your name is Jones, I'm sorry. It's just a cliche, right? No, seriously, stop trying to compare yourself to others. It's a kind of a weird way of thinking, but anyone, and I've spoken about this before, who has ran, let's say, track, knows that the coach will tell them, run your own race. So here you are in a race with 7 other people or thereabouts, and you're trying to get to the finish line before them. and you're going down the track or going around the track at the same time, and the coach will tell you, run your own race. And there's a lot of wisdom in it, because every phase of a race, there's something that you ought to be doing, and what you need to be focusing focus on as an athlete is your own form and your execution of those different phases, working hard to make sure that you're executing them as best as you can. If you do that to the best of your ability, sometimes you cross the finish line first, which is a goal, right? When you start to focus on the person to your left or your right, you totally throw yourself off, your own game off, and sometimes you lose. So yeah, don't fall into that comparison trap. John Wooden, famous basketball player, I think is the most successful basketball coach, the basketball coach of all time. He says, don't measure yourself by what you've accomplished, but rather by what you should have accomplished with your abilities. So what I'm saying here, don't compare yourself to others, right? Resist that urge. Compare yourself to yourself, and not only by what you have accomplished, but what you could have accomplished based on your abilities. So if you go back to point number 2 about working hard to grow your talent and acquire new knowledge. If you're doing that, then you can, as objectively as possible, as it's really important to be objective in this process, figure out, hey, where am I compared to where I could have been? It's really important to be as objective as possible in this process. Hey, I talk about our team back in 1988 all the time. And, people look on the end result. Hey, we crashed on the third run in a rather spectacular way. Yeah, it happens. And I always take pains to say, look, I may be biased, but I would argue that we were incredibly successful. Yeah, we didn't win the medal. Like I said, we crashed. But if you know the backstory, if you knew that the first time we saw a bobsled was in September of 1987, the first time we went on a bobsled track was in October of 1987, the first time we raced a 4-man sled, the first time we were ever in a 4-man bobsled race was the Olympic Games itself. And yet we pushed the 7th fastest start time. So when I compare that journey, when I compare where we ended up in terms of our skill set and our knowledge compared to where we started only 4 months or so earlier, I would say we were a huge success. And that's my challenge to you. As Jamaicans, we didn't compare ourselves to the Swiss and the Germans, teams that had over 100 years or almost 100 years. They had 98 years to be exact in bobsledding, or compared to 4 months, right? If you adopt that attitude, I think you will be able to more easily see yourself as successful as opposed to a failure. So that would be number 4. Number 5, I would say, speaks to thinking about the amount of time you spend doing what you love. It really is important. There's a cliche that says, if you love what you do, then you're not working a day in your life, right? Which is true. I mean, when we think of success, again, we think in terms of a fancy job or the salary or the house or the bling, all those trappings of success, right? And I'm not negating any of those things. But if you love what you do, it's true, you will never work a day in your life. It doesn't mean that you don't make effort. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you're going to be sitting on a beach sipping fruity drinks. You're going to work. You're going to make effort. You're going to make effort because you want to continue to grow. You want to continue to become more skilled. You want to continue to reach new milestones. reach higher levels, right? You have to keep on pushing. You are going to continue to make effort because you want to make an impact on the lives of others, right? And so that requires a certain amount of grit and stamina and resilience that we spoke about earlier, persistence, adaptability, a solid work ethic, as it were, to get you where you want to go. But chances are you'll not feel burnt out. You'll not feel overwhelmed. You'll be singing every morning, man. When you wake up, you can't wait to jump out of bed, because this thing that you're doing fills your soul. It fills your soul. You feel fulfilled in getting up and making this effort every single day. And that, my friend, is probably the ultimate measure of success, because there are so many people who have all the trappings of success and they're miserable. They're miserable. I mean, some of them even commit suicide, which Tony Robbins speaks about this. That is the ultimate failure, to have all the trappings of success and yet feel so miserable, feel so unfulfilled that you take your own life. So yeah, those are the thoughts I wanted to share with you. Like I said, we're all chasing this thing called success. We all want it. We want to achieve it. We want to become it. But yes, it does depend on how we choose to define success for ourselves. It's a very personal thing. It's a very personal journey. And so the first thing is that you have to figure out what's important to you. What are your values? What's important to you? And then knowing that on the journey, you're going to face all kinds of challenges. So how well are you adapting to those challenges so that you can keep working towards those things that are important to you? And as you're adapting to those challenges, you're becoming more resilient, more persistent. You are able to develop some grit that causes you to want to learn more, become more skilled, right? So how much are you growing? And if you're growing, yes, you're succeeding, you're making progress. And then you're resisting the temptation to compare yourself to others. Rather, you're going, okay, I started this thing called bobsledding 4 months ago. Wow, look how much I've learned, right? I started this new job 6 months ago. Wow, look at the impact I'm making. That's progress. That's your journey. That's your personal journey. It doesn't matter what somebody else did, right? So you don't compare yourself to others, and then you think about the fact that you're doing something that you really love. Wow. Can you imagine that? You're doing something that you truly love and they pay you for it. I don't know if there's a better definition of success than that. So yeah, man, those are the thoughts I wanted to share with you. I thank you for joining me this week, as always. Don't forget to join me over on YouTube on my channel, Keep On Pushing Always. Have some really great interviews and some really talented, accomplished, yes, successful people who have some nuggets to share. And as I always say, that success principles are universal. And so I think that there are some things there that you can pick up, that you can apply to your life as well. So join us over there. Join us next week as well. Don't forget to bring a friend. And until we connect or reconnect, you know what you should do, right? Keep on pushing.